Hey guys, welcome back to the Walshmore Racing Supercharged Samsonas S2000 build series. In the last episode we covered the transmission selection, the reasons why we selected the Samsonas transmission, as well as the vendor we went with and the options we chose for the transmission. If you haven't seen that yet, we have a link in the description and you should definitely go check that out. Okay, so in this episode we are going to be covering getting the Samsonas S2000 transmission actually installed in the car. We're going to cover getting the custom differential installed in the car and the choices around there and the options that we went with. And finally we're going to cover the drive shaft, getting the custom drive shaft made with Driveshaft Pro. As you probably guessed, foreshadowing, that did not go very smoothly. Okay, so when it came to actually mounting the transmission in the car, it was a pretty easy and straightforward process. Because we're using the OEM clutch assembly and the bell housing, the front part of the transmission goes on pretty easily. From there, you then bolt the body on. We were using the InlinePro transmission mount. You can see that. And everything went well with that, except that we had to slightly notch the holes there. But other than that, everything went in pretty easily on the transmission side. The next step for the install was to go ahead and choose a differential. Rather than sticking with the stock differential, or rather at that point the Putty Mod upgraded S2000 LSD, we decided to go with an upgraded differential. We looked at a couple different options. Some of the Ford Cobra and Mustang, as well as Explorer 8.8 diffs. But ultimately we decided to go with a 370Z diff at InlinePro's suggestion. The reason why we chose a 370Z diff kit is because it is one of the only ones that allows you to not modify the subframe. Essentially the 370Z kit, it has custom mounts and parts, but you do not need to cut, weld, or do any custom modifications to the S2000 subframe. And we decided to go with the 370Z kit. The owner, James, decided on a limited slip differential, so we went with the Cause LSD. And we had the differential built locally down in SoCal by Unitrax, JBM Off-Road over in Corona. The InlinePro 370Z diff kit is pretty easy to install. Once you've removed the S2000 differential from the car and you have all the parts removed and the kit bolted onto the differential, you can install it pretty easily. The one thing that we did notice with the differential kit is that the kit parts blocked our fill plug. Essentially, you would have to remove the differential every time in order to fill the differential fluid, and that didn't make any sense to us, so we ended up machining a little bit of a service window in order to make that reasonable and serviceable. It didn't make sense to have to spend 3 hours just to change the differential fluid. Now that we had the differential and the transmission mounted in the car, the next step was to get a custom drive shaft made. The first choice would have been Driveshaft Shop, but unfortunately it looks like the local SoCal location closed recently, or maybe in the last couple of years. So instead we went with Driveshaft Pro Whittier, which was the closest location nearby. I brought the car to them, their physical location, because I wanted to avoid having to deal with any drive shaft measurements, whether it was the length or hole spacing or tooth count. I didn't want to have to deal with digital calipers, whatever it may be, so I brought the car to them. We went with 3-inch aluminum, and they were able to make it for us the first time around within 3 or 4 days. As soon as we got the drive shaft back, we put it on the car and realized that the drive shaft differential flange was incorrect. It did not fit. So the whole point in taking James's car in person to Driveshaft Pro was to avoid these kind of problems. Literally, the flange spacing was off by about a ½ inch or so. So I have no clue what Adrian and the guys at Driveshaft Pro were doing, but at the first point, I gave them the benefit of the doubt. You know, they had originally got us the drive shaft within about 3 or 4 days. Adrian was very personable and hospitable as a business owner, so I said, okay, no problem.
we'll take it back. So I brought back the drive shaft, and a day later, we had a new iteration of it. We put this drive shaft onto the car, and everything seemed to be fine. At this point, we had to focus a little bit on the shifter, which I will get to after the drive shaft, but essentially, once we had gotten the shifter finished, the transmission, the differential, the shifter, and the drive shaft were all good to go. We go to test the car, and we run into this scenario.
Neutral, okay, cool. Go to first. Do that again. Stop.
Okay, so what the heck just happened? Essentially, Adrian and the guys at Driveshaft Pro gave us the wrong transmission yoke side for our drive shaft. The side slipped in, but it actually had the incorrect number of teeth, and the diameter of the teeth engagement was incorrect. So they give us a 31/30 count spline when we should have had 30/29 teeth count spline. So they counted that incorrectly. And the diameter of those teeth, as far as when they engage, were incorrect. So inside there, essentially our yoke was swimming and the teeth were grinding. The teeth on the drive shaft were grinding on the teeth on the output shaft of the transmission. So the drive shaft went back to Driveshaft Pro, and this actually continued on for a couple weeks while they tried to identify the correct slip yoke for the transmission side. Ultimately, I had to contact Samsonas and get a recommended part number in order for them to do this correctly. And once we found the final correct part number, we brought the drive shaft home, and this is the next problem.
Because even like the actual flange is hitting the...
Yeah, the flange is fucking hitting the thing.
That's crazy. Dude, that's
like
how
he's
you...
like on drugs. Whoever fucking did this.
Yeah, they didn't...
You guys are idiots. Go all the way down. Go all the way down. But it is the right flange, though, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. Like, look.
For sure this time, and the teeth, everything is good.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can't really know until we turn on the car and if you hear it's the teeth.
So the drive shaft took another trip back to Driveshaft Pro. And finally, after this, it was rectified. I think all in all, it took about 4 or 5 weeks with about 5 or 6 round trips to the Driveshaft Pro shop. At a certain point, they started sending their courier in order to help facilitate. But I think if it wasn't for the fact that we were a business and that they wanted to keep a good relationship, that I don't know what would have happened if I were an individual with just working out of my own garage. I do not recommend Driveshaft Pro Whittier. Yes, Adrian and the crew were professional the entire time, but we brought the car to them in the first place. You should measure twice, cut once. It should not have taken 5 iterations, 6 iterations, whatever it took, almost a month extra to rectify the mistakes that you guys made. That's very unprofessional, and I cannot believe how poor of a job you guys did. Moving on. So the last part of the build was figuring out the shifter. We purchased a Samsonas shifter from Samsonas. So it was merely just the challenge of getting the shifter mounted in the S2000 chassis. Originally, we had a picture from a previous owner with a previous S2000 owner with a Samsonas transmission. We used this as a reference to try to figure out where we could put the shifter. Ultimately, we put it underneath the transmission tunnel, and it's in the exact, basically the OEM location with some small minor modifications to the tunnel. It is braced from underneath the car into the tunnel, and then we actually created an extra bracing plate inside the trans tunnel to help prevent the trans tunnel metal from flexing when you're shifting the gears for the Samsonas. The Dogbox requires a little bit more force than your usual transmission, so and the shifter is quite beefy, the shifter mechanism, so we figured it would be a good idea to reinforce that thin sheet metal in the trans tunnel.
Nah, that's okay. Okay. That's second. Okay, third.
All right, so I think it's the moment we've all been waiting for. It's time to take this car for a test drive. We did a alignment on the car. The subframe had been moved around and stuff, so we needed to take care of that, and we had done the rear hubs. So after a quick alignment, it was time to take the first spin.
Hold on.
You're good.
This car does not always prime. They need to figure that out.
Straight back. You're good. Straight back. You're good. Looks like we're gonna go for another test drive right now, guys. So we'll keep you posted. You're good. You're good. You're good.
Let's just do a little small lap, and then we'll record that.
feel?
It's good. It's smooth. Everything feels good. Clutch still feels good.
Nice, nice.
Yeah, everything feels good. I'm trying to think. Alignment, I think, just needs to be slightly tweaked.
Yeah, think so? Okay.
It's kind of like you have to drive like this, so I'm gonna fix that when we get back.
That shit's fucking wild, dude.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
That shit's crazy.
Thing is not easy to get used to shifting. You definitely gotta practice. It's
Yeah,